Let me paint you a picture. The United States Navy, the most dominant naval power in human history, has formed a ring of steel around Venezuela. A fleet of warships is actively patrolling, advanced radar systems are scanning the Caribbean waters, and the directive from the top is crystal clear: let no oil pass. This is a naval blockade in everything but name. Now consider this. Since January, not just one or two, but roughly a dozen colossal oil tankers have completely disappeared from the grid. One minute they appear as glowing dots on a satellite feed carrying millions of barrels of crude oil. The very next they're gone like phantoms on the water. So how on earth do you make a floating skyscraper vanish in the middle of the ocean? The technique is brilliantly simple, and it's rewriting the rules of global power plays. These tankers engage what insiders call dark mode. Think about it like this. Every major vessel is equipped with a transponder, which is essentially a maritime GPS that constantly announces its identity and location to the world. To go dark, all the crew has to do is flip a switch and turn it off. That's the naval equivalent of putting your phone on airplane mode while piloting a ship that's 300 meters long. To the global network, the satellites and the Navy's command screens, the ship effectively ceases to exist in a digital blind spot. It transforms into an invisible shadow slipping across the high seas. And as we speak, a ghost fleet of these shadow vessels hauling an estimated 12 million barrels of Venezuelan oil is currently evading the most sophisticated surveillance net on Earth. This, of course, brings up the most critical question. Why is this particular oil so valuable that it justifies this incredible high-stakes international game of cat and mouse? Let's cut right to the core of the issue. This whole affair is about much more than a few shipments of petroleum. This is about controlling the world's ultimate treasure chest. Forget what you know about Saudi Arabia or Russia. The one nation sitting on the largest confirmed oil reserves anywhere on the planet more than any other country is Venezuela. We're talking about a staggering 300 billion plus barrels of crude oil that are still in the ground. To give you some context for that mind-boggling figure, it's a fortune so immense it could power major global economies for decades to come. It is a multi-trillion-dollar prize buried deep beneath Venezuelan territory. For the government in Caracas, this oil is far more than a simple commodity. It is their absolute only lifeline. It represents the single source of foreign currency for a nation that has been completely shattered by an economic catastrophe. The sale of this crude is what keeps the country running both literally and in the political sense. From the United States' perspective, choking off that lifeline is the most powerful tool of coercion they have. The blockade is not merely about enforcing sanctions. It's a calculated move to seize control over the destiny of that resource and to determine who reaps the financial benefits. So when these tankers go dark and manage to slip through, it represents more than just simple evasion. It's Venezuela's desperate fight for economic survival, deploying its greatest and truly its only weapon. And every single barrel that successfully breaks the blockade sends a defiant message: you cannot so easily suffocate a nation that holds the keys to the world's largest energy supply. But to actually achieve this, Venezuela required something beyond just a few dark ships. They needed an entire clandestine system and a very eager buyer located on the opposite side of the globe. So let's demystify the anatomy of a ghost ship. It's typically an older vessel purchased for a low price and legally owned by a complex web of anonymous shell companies. Its strength doesn't come from invisibility cloaks, but from impenetrable secrecy. The crews conduct business using cash-forged documentation and encrypted communication. The moment they go dark, they vanish from the legitimate world, leaving behind no digital breadcrumbs for anyone to trace. They are the perfect embodiment of a maritime grey area. And here is the crucial insight. Venezuela did not invent this playbook. They had some very experienced mentors. You just have to look at the true masters of this covert game, Iran and Russia. For many years, these nations have operated massive shadow fleets, an entire secret shipping industry designed for the sole purpose of defeating sanctions. Venezuela merely adopted their established methods. They took their urgent need to sell oil and plugged it into this already functioning global shadow economy. As a result, this is no longer a simple showdown between Venezuela and the US Navy. It is now the Navy against a globally tested playbook for circumventing American authority. And that playbook has one enormous and very enthusiastic customer. Now a phantom ship requires a port of call. All of that Venezuelan crude that's slipping past the blockade isn't just disappearing. It is heading to one main destination, China. And to grasp the reason why you have to examine the situation from Beijing's strategic viewpoint, this isn't about provoking a confrontation. It's about executing a clever long-range strategy. First and foremost, that this is about guaranteeing energy security. China's economy is a colossal machine that demands a constant supply of fuel. Diversifying the sources of that oil isn't just good policy. It's a fundamental national priority. Acquiring oil from Venezuela, especially at what is almost certainly a significant discount because of the sanctions, is simply smart business. It is like owning a private tap that you can turn on whenever you need it. Secondly, and arguably with even greater significance, it's about cultivating global influence. Every single barrel of oil that China purchases is a powerful vote of confidence for the government in Caracas. It solidifies a strategic partnership, fosters a sense of dependency, and gives China a very valuable friend right in America's backyard, a friend who just so happens to possess the planet's largest oil reserves. For China, this entire scenario isn't seen as a crisis at all. It's viewed as a massive opportunity. It's a chance to lock down vital resources while quietly proving that the global system can function on a set of rules that extend beyond those dictated by Washington. But this very eagerness from China presents an immense practical dilemma for the military force trying to intercept the oil of the US Navy. So for a moment, let's imagine we are standing on the bridge of a US Navy destroyer. Your mission is to maintain the blockade and stop the flow of this oil. Your radar system detects a gigantic vessel clearly a tanker, but its transponder is completely silent. So there it is, a phantom vessel. What's the play? You can't just send it to the bottom. The law of the sea is incredibly murky on this. If you attempt a boarding, you're basically committing an act of piracy in open waters. That's a massive provocation. Now let's say a new piece of intelligence comes across your desk. That untraceable ship on the horizon is confirmed to be flying a Chinese flag with an all-Chinese crew. The entire equation just flipped on its head. All of a sudden, this isn't about oil or enforcing sanctions anymore. Making a move on that ship could ignite an international firestorm or worse. The commander on that destroyer has to weigh a heavy question: is seizing this one vessel worth the risk of setting off a global crisis? And this reveals the blockade's central fatal weakness. It is one thing to announce a quarantine from a secure office in Washington. It's a completely different reality trying to execute it on the volatile, high-stakes open ocean where every single move is scrutinized by rivals just waiting for you to overplay your hand. The Navy's immense power is hamstrung by politics, and in that brief window of hesitation, the Shadow Fleet sails on. Now let's consider the chain reaction. Every single time a shadow tanker brimming with Venezuelan crude slides into a Chinese port undetected, it sends a tremor through the entire global system of sanctions and diplomatic pressure. This isn't just a victory for Venezuela, it's a huge proof of concept for the whole shadow economy. Consider it a live fire drill, and so far it's getting a perfect score. Nations like Iran, Russia, and North Korea are paying very close attention. The signal they're receiving is undeniable. The American strategy can be defeated. Their thinking becomes, if Venezuela can pull this off, so can we. This success validates their entire approach and incentivizes them to pour even more resources into expanding their own phantom fleets. It's pushing the entire strategy of using oil as a form of political leverage into a completely new and unpredictable phase. We are seeing the rise of a world with two coexisting systems. You have the legitimate regulated market, and alongside it, this mushrooming opaque shadow network that functions by its own code. The better it works, the bigger it gets, fundamentally altering the dynamics of global trade and influence. But this doesn't mean the pursuit has ended. Quite the opposite, it has ignited a secret high-tech war to hunt these phantoms down. So if these vessels can effectively disappear from all standard tracking systems, how in the world do you locate them? Welcome to the 21st century espionage game played out on the high seas. The second those transponders go silent, intelligence services pivot to a different arsenal of tools. These ghost ships have no simple way of disabling. The single most critical asset is in orbit. Spy satellites armed with a technology called synthetic aperture radar are able to see right through cloud cover and complete darkness. They aren't trying to detect a signal. They are searching for the giant metal profile of a tanker itself against the backdrop of the water. It's the difference between looking for a tiny blinking light and seeing the whole truck. Simultaneously, financial investigators are deep in the weeds, tracing intricate money trails that wind through a maze of shell companies. Port officials in allied nations receive quiet alerts to be on the lookout for particular vessels. It's a worldwide chess match, blending satellite reconnaissance, digital forensics, and classic human intelligence on the ground. And yet with all this technology, the hunters are still trying to close the gap. The Phantom's got a head start, and every completed voyage makes them more sophisticated. This leads us to the last decisive part of this entire picture. What is the real-world consequence for Venezuela? And what does it signal about where we're all headed? So after everything, the phantom ships, the military standoffs, the global gamesmanship, what is the actual prize for Venezuela? For the leadership in Caracas, this represents something much bigger than just another oil deal. This is their most important strategic victory in years. They're in a fight for their very survival. Every single barrel that makes it through is a vital artery. It means hard currency to buy food and medicine, to make military payroll, to stop the core functions of government from completely shutting down. But its power as a symbol is equally important. It demonstrates to their own population and the entire world that they are not cut off. They've engineered a way around the embargo, and they have a heavyweight partner in China. This accomplishment is a massive boost to morale and a potent political weapon that proves even under extreme duress they can still strategize, outwit, and safeguard their most critical resource. It transforms the public story from one of a nation under siege to one of a nation that's creatively fighting back. But this whole affair is about more than just Venezuela. It's a far more significant indicator of how global power functions in the modern era. When all is said and done, this high-stakes drama on the seas between ghost ships and a superpower navy is a perfect microcosm of our evolving world. It tells us that the old doctrines of brute military force are reaching their effective limits. You might have the most powerful fleet on the planet, but when your adversary leverages secrecy, globalized networks, and economic interdependence, confronting them becomes exceptionally messy and fraught with risk. It exposes how smaller nations such as Venezuela can now leverage the competition between the great powers. By putting a valuable resource on the table, they can gain the backing or partnership of a rival like China. This is nothing like the Cold War, which had two well-defined sides. It's a much more chaotic, multifaceted contest where economic relationships are every bit as critical as military pacts. Ultimately, it heralds a world where the instruments for resisting superpower influence, shadow fleets, clandestine finance, cyber capabilities, are becoming widely available. The competition has evolved far beyond a simple headcount of vessels. Victory now belongs to those who master the unseen pathways of our globally wired world. This Dark Fleet's voyage isn't just about logistics. It's a clear declaration that the established rules for international dominance are being fundamentally torn up and drafted anew right at this moment out on the high seas.